This is an example of a mass-to-mass stoichiometry problem. So just like all stoichiometry problems, the first thing we have to do is balance our equation. So if you look, we have 3 carbons. So we need to have 3 carbons. So we're going to put 3 in front of the CO2. We have 8 hydrogens on the left, and so we need 8 hydrogens on the right of the arrow. So we're going to put a 4 in front. And then lastly, we're going to balance our oxygens. And remember that we have them in 2 places. So we have them in the CO2. We have 3 times 2, which is 6, and then 4 times 1, which is 4. So 6 plus 4 is 10. So I need something times 2 to give me a 10, and that's 5. So then the next thing we're going to look at is the problems. So if we go down to the problems, we're going to notice that we have 160 grams, very important, grams of C3H8. So I know that C3H8 is my superstar, but I can't use the grams. And so what I need to do is pop over to the mole wheel. And so I'm going to look at the mass. So I know I have 160 grams. Follow in the arrows. Again, it tells me to divide by molar mass. And in this case, it's 160 grams of C3H8. So I need to look up the molar mass of that. Well, carbon is 12 and hydrogen is 1. 12 times 3 is 36. Plus 1 times 8 is 8. So I know what I'm dividing by is 44. And so 160 grams divided by 44. So if you grab your calculator out, you're going to find that that's equal to 3.64 moles. So I'm going to go back now to my problem and make it something I can work with. I can't work with grams, but I can work with moles. So 3.64 moles. So I'm going to pop up and remember that this is my superstar stuff. And so everything is some proportion of this 3.64. So I'm going to have 3.64 and 3.64 all the way under everybody, because some proportion of 3.64 is how many I'm going to need and how many I'm going to get. So how do I figure out that proportion? Well, it's all about the superstar. I didn't put a 1 in front. Good idea to put a 1 in front when I balanced. And so I know that the superstar number is a 1. That's the number that's going to go on the bottom of every proportion fraction. So I'm going to divide by 1 because I want to get rid of the superstar. And then I'm going to multiply by their individual numbers. So I'm going to multiply by a 1 on top, a 5, a 3, and a 4. So then I'm just going to do the math. Well, 1 over 1 times 3.64, very, very easy. So that answer is 3.64 moles. So that's how many moles, and that's my superstar, better stay the same. That's how many moles of C3H8. So this one's just going to be 5 times 3.64 divided by 1. And so when I work that out, I get 18.2 moles of O2. The next one is 3.64 times 3. So that's 10.92 moles of CO2. And lastly, I have 4 times 3.64 divided by 1. And so that comes out to be 14.6 moles of water. But if I look at my question, I'm asking for how many what? How many grams of O2? So I'm going to go find my O2. So here's O2. That's where my question mark is. And so I need to convert my moles to grams. Well, remember, if you pop to the mole wheel, so now I'm on the mole wheel, and I want to get that to grams. And so I'm on mole, tells me to multiply by the molar mass. But in this case, I'm down to O2. I'm looking for O2. I have, if I remember right, 18.2 moles of O2. 18.2 moles of O2. And I want to get to grams of O2, so I'm going to times by the molar mass of O2, which we know is 16 times 2 is 32 grams. So I'm going to multiply those two together to get my answer. So I'm going to show you that I just do this right up here. So anytime I'm given mole, our little saying is that we multiply. What do we multiply by? In this case, the molar mass of O2, which is 32. And so this comes out to be a bunch of grams, 382 grams. So for 160 grams of C3H8, I need 582 grams of oxygen so that it can burn. And then the last question is how much water does it form? And yes, water is formed whenever we burn a hydrocarbon. Again, I have mole, so what's that? What am I going to do? Yes, I'm going to multiply, but in this case by water's molar mass. So I know hydrogen is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. Oxygen is 16 times 1 is 16. So I know that water weighs 18. So I'm just going to multiply by 18. And so I end up with 263 grams of water. So there's simply, and that's that question there, how many grams of water? I didn't ask for anything about the CO2. I could go and multiply that by 44, its molar mass, to find its grams. But at this point, this is the information that it wanted to know. So my final answers, grams of O2, 582. Grams of water produced, 263 grams of water.